Sup? I'm recording. Sup, though? Right.
I decided to sell my old desk on Craigslist. It had been lying around in my room, gathering dust, and I figured it was time to go. I took some pictures and then listed it, but after waiting for a whole week with no interest, I was starting to lose hope. Then, out of the blue, I got a message from a guy who seemed super interested on checking out the desk. We messaged back and forth for a little while, and soon I gave him my address to come and buy it.
God damn.
On the day of the meetup, the man showed up, and something about him felt a little off.
Oh, yeah?
Anyway, I welcomed him in and led him to where the desk was.
God damn. You just met this person. And now y'all in the same, now he in your house. That shit's crazy.
The man had sort of long hair that was blondish red. He was thin and also somewhat short. He looked at the desk for a minute or two. There really wasn't much to it. It was just an old desk. But then he looked up and asked me if he could use my bathroom.
What?
I was confused at first, but I didn't want to be rude, so I pointed him in the right direction. He was in there for a little while, as I waited in the living room by the desk. Then, finally, the man came back over and told me that he really had to get going. He thanked me for showing him the desk and said that he would consider it. Then he left. I was sort of confused.
If he said you would have left like that, I would have stopped him by the door, hand on the chest, looked him dead in the eyes and said, if you or anybody else come over here, announced or unannounced, oh, best believe that is your ass. Literally, I got a pack of Trojan condoms. Yeah, that's your ass. Alright? So, don't try nothing. It won't be nothing. I never had no cluck shit happen to me before. So that being said, any cluck shit that happens to me thus far, oh, I'm coming after you with a whole pack of Trojan condoms. And I'm using every last one of them.
Also disappointed. The whole encounter seemed strange, and I was really hoping that the man would have bought the desk from me. Later that day, I decided to lower the price on the desk on Craigslist in hopes that it would get more attention. That very night, though, something strange happened. I was sound asleep when I suddenly woke up to strange noises. I sat up and listened closely. The noises sounded like they were coming from down the hallway. I couldn't figure out what was causing them, and they went on for what felt like forever. After waking up a little...
And, wow, it literally happened in the same day. That's crazy. That's your ass.
I soon realized that the noises were coming from my bathroom down the hallway. This was really strange to me, so I decided to get up and check it out. I got up from my bed and slowly walked over to my doorway. It was open a little, and I stuck my head out to look into the hallway. Just as I did that, I saw the same guy who had looked at my desk earlier. He was leaving my bathroom and starting to walk down the hallway in the opposite direction of me. I quickly ducked back into my bedroom. I was really glad that the guy hadn't seen me. Still, I was really scared, and I couldn't believe that this guy was inside my house. I shut my bedroom door and locked it. I hadn't thought to be quiet, and it made a noise much louder than I had expected. After this, I heard movement, as if the man was now walking in my direction. Sure enough, his footsteps started moving closer to my bedroom. I backed up and ran to the corner of the room, farthest away from the doorway, got my phone out, and called the police. In the meantime, the man tried opening my bedroom door. When he did, I started freaking out. Then he began banging on the door loudly, not as if he wanted me to let him in, but as if he was trying to break the door down. I looked around the room, but didn't really have any decent hiding places in there. I also had nothing I could really use to defend myself. As the banging continued, I worried that my door wouldn't be able to hold up. I looked to the window and decided that I would have to jump out. The bedroom was not very high above the ground, and I could make the jump to the grass pretty easily. I went to the window and started scrambling to get it open. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be because I was panicking. The bangs on my bedroom door got louder and louder. Finally, I got the window open and I jumped out onto the lawn beside my house. Then I ran down the street as quickly as I could. I didn't really know where exactly I was going, just away from there. I wound up making it to the end of the block before running out of breath.
Well, you don't know where to go? Well, don't come to my house. Do not come to my house with that cluck shit. On some real shit. Don't do that.
Soon I started walking, and I felt much better and was relieved to be away from there. The police arrived at my house only minutes later. I saw the flashing lights from the next street over, and I walked around. When I saw them, I carefully headed back, and when I got back to my house, I was able to see that they had caught the man who had broken in. I spoke with several officers for about an hour, recapping the whole situation. When I learned that officers had found the man in my bedroom with the door broken, I couldn't believe it. I'm really glad that I left. I'm not sure why the man broke into my house though, and what his intentions were. I do know that he got in because he left the bathroom window open a little bit for himself when he had looked at the desk earlier. It was never really his intentions to buy it. To wrap up the story, I will let you know that I did end up selling the desk at a lower price several weeks later.
You know what would be funny? Not funny, but it would be something if I'm watching like a horror story, right? And one of the bad guys or one of the intruders or one of the sus club people, went over to somebody's house and they literally had a pack of condoms. That's not funny. But that.
I was in the market for a new car and decided to check out some options on Craigslist.
That was your first option? Really? Not Carvana? Not CarMax? Hell, not even eBay. Just Craigslist. That's shit. Is there anything that people don't sell on Craigslist? I would think they sell everything. Everything on Craigslist.
Browsing through a few listings, and even test driving a couple of cars that didn't quite meet my expectations, I stumbled upon one that seemed like a good deal. The ad boasted about how the car ran great and had no issues, and the price was also very reasonable. I contacted the seller, and we agreed to meet at a local park so I could take a look at the car. When I arrived at the park the next day, the man who owned the car came across as really creepy right from the start. I had a strange gut feeling about him, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions just yet. I looked around at the car from the outside and asked very basic questions. The man answered them for the most part, like how the gas mileage was and things like that. I just really wasn't sure about it though for some reason. We both stood near the car, and the man insisted on demonstrating how well it ran. He didn't offer for me to take it for a test drive though. Instead, he asked that I get in the passenger side of the back of the car and he would drive.
What the cluck? You already have... you better not get in that car. You better not get in that car. Because you already have suspicions and... How would you say? Cluckness? No. Cluck awareness? What would you combine cluck and awareness? Because what? You have suspicions. Cluck awareness? Because you already got suspicions about the guy and the whole interaction. And you also got, here we go, cluck awareness about him and the situation. You best not get in that car.
The front passenger seat was like folded up almost, and also up against the glove compartment. The man explained that the seat had broken and was stuck that way.
Wow.
But it would be very easy and cheap for me to fix it. He also told me that he would let me drive, but he had once had a car stolen from him.
What? Go back.
And also up against the glove compartment. The man explained that the seat had broken and was stuck that way, but it would be very easy and cheap for me to fix it.
For me to fix it? How about you fix it? There should be nothing wrong with this car.
He also told me that he would let me drive, but he had once had a car stolen from him in the past and is very protective of his things. I remember him also saying he was sure I was a good person, but he had to play it safe. These things obviously came across as a little bit strange to me, but I believed both of his explanations and I got in the back. Then we took off. As soon as he started driving, I realized very fast that the car wasn't in the condition that it was advertised online. The engine made a really weird sound, and the overall performance was far from impressive. It was clear that the car was nothing more than a junker, and the guy was seeming sketchier and sketchier by the second. I was really disappointed, and I mentioned the strange noise the car was making. The man kept on driving, almost as if he was trying to prove to me that it was a decent vehicle, and he told me that the noise was nothing and to not worry about it.
Wow.
I started to feel uncomfortable, and I wanted the ride to end as soon as possible. He kept driving for probably 10 more minutes though.
10 minutes?
As the ride continued, I decided to speak up. I told the man that the car wasn't what I expected and I wanted to return to the park. He agreed and started to turn the car around, and I was happy for this test drive to finally be over with. But the guy didn't keep going back the way we had came. Instead, he turned off to another road that I knew wasn't right. The roads that we were on were also very quiet. I told him I really have to be somewhere, hoping that he would finally listen to me. Instead, he turned to me with a sinister grin and said, "No, you're coming with me." My heart sank as the car continued to speed along, and the fact that we were in an area that I didn't know anymore made me increasingly worried. I had no idea where we were heading. Wow, I'm being kidnapped. This is real, I thought to myself. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I had to think fast to find a way out of it. Suddenly, luck seemed to be on my side, as the car's engine started making terrible sounds, even worse than before, and then smoke started to come out of the hood. The man pulled the vehicle.
You was about to sell me this piece of shit?
Over to the side of the road. He was frustrated, and he locked the doors and got out to examine the engine. There was a child lock on the back seat, so I couldn't get out. If I could get up to the front seats, though, it would be possible. But the man was right there, and I probably wouldn't be able to get past him. He would see me moving to the front. I sat there for a moment as the man fumbled around with the engine. Then I noticed a truck coming up behind us on the quiet road that we were on the side of. An opportunity presented itself to me. As the truck stopped behind us, I quickly jumped into the front driver's seat and unlocked the doors. Then I jumped out and was just feet away from the man. He started to try and stop me, but I ran in the opposite direction towards the truck behind us. The guy driving the truck looked really confused, but ended up letting me in. I told him what had happened, and the police were called. Meanwhile, the man got back inside his car and tried desperately to start the engine and drive away, but the car still wouldn't start.
You're not going nowhere.
Eventually, he ended up just getting out and running off into the woods. I sat inside the big pickup truck with the driver, watching the whole time. The police got there about 5 minutes after the guy had ran off into the woods. They were able to find him and picked him up in about 15 minutes. I'm really grateful that the truck happened to be driving by when it did, or else I don't know how I would have gotten away.
I wonder if that was the power of Adidas that sent a truck driver down the road. Because I don't know how else you would explain that.
As my freshman year in high school was arriving, I was an ignorant 14-year-old dreaming of having my own TV in my bedroom. I remember asking my parents many times, but they would always say the same things. They didn't have enough money, and it wasn't good for me to play video games all the time anyways. Their solution? If I wanted a TV so badly, I could buy one myself. The only problem was that I couldn't get a job because I was only 14, and I had no money. I remember searching around for jobs, but I just couldn't find anything.
You know what's sus about that? Some jobs in America, you can start at 14. Probably even lower than that. But so I was working at Publix. Publix is a grocery store in the southeast part of of America. So when I was working there, I realized that you could be 14 with a permit working there. And you can only work a certain amount of hours. And I think the president or like the CEO of Publix authorized that, which is weird as cluck. Because you got people, grown ass people, like, I don't know, it's just like, you got people of all ages, like customers going in and out. And then you got really like, I don't know, that's just a little sus. Like, you 14. You 14. Like, it's a little weird.
Because you had to be 16. Then I got another idea. I realized that on Craigslist, lots of people gave away stuff for free. I started secretly going on every single night and began scouring the free listings for a TV. Figured if there was an actual working TV that was good, it would probably go pretty fast. A few weeks went by with nothing. There were a few possibilities, but they either seemed really sketchy, were too far away, or the TV was broken. Finally, at last, I found one that seemed perfect. The TV was not super big or new, but definitely good enough for me. It made me excited when I found it, and I contacted the owner immediately. I waited for the rest of the night for them to respond.
You're 14, right? You're 14, right? Alright.
But they didn't. I was worried somebody else had picked it up. But the next morning, I saw that they got back to me and told me that I could come pick it up that night if I wanted.
You're 14.
This made me really excited, and I told them that I would. We lived in a really populated area, which meant that I could ride my bike almost all over the place.
You're 14.
The address was only about 1.5 miles away. So that night, without telling my parents, I hooked up a wagon to the back of my bike so that I could carry the TV back. Then I set out to go pick it up. My plan was to put some bungee cords around the TV and wagon for it to be secured. And once I was home, I would show my parents. I figured that if I already had the TV home...
This would have been a great time. I don't know what year this happened in, but this would be a great time for you to have like a tracking system on your kid's bike. Because I got a bad feeling about this. Hopefully he get away, but...
My parents would let me keep it. I knew them pretty good, and my older sister had actually done a similar thing with a pet hamster. She didn't sneak out into the night to get it, but she had a friend who was giving away a hamster, and she came over, and then they asked her, and my parents said yes. Anyways, the sun was set, and it took me about 15 minutes to get to the address that I had written down as the house. When I got there, it looked like just another house in a dense neighborhood. I parked my bike at the end of the driveway and then walked up to the front step. When I was there, I knocked at the front door, but saw that it was already open. Still, I didn't want to be rude, and I waited outside. I heard a voice coming from seemingly the back of the house. It was a man's voice, and he said something like, "Are you here for the TV?" I yelled back, "Yes." The guy said that it was his son's, and he was in the basement. He then told me to go ahead. I found it a little strange, and I never saw the person, and they never bothered to come and answer the door or greet me at all. I helped myself to walking inside, and saw that there was a basement door that was open with stairs going down.
God damn.
The basement was very dark and looked really creepy to me.
It's crazy. Some of these stories just don't sound real. Some of these stories seem like they're made up. Because it just doesn't make any sense why somebody would do this. I don't understand this shit at all. My God.
As a 14-year-old kid, I'm not going to lie, I had a feeling of, what did I get myself into? Still, I wanted a TV, and I wanted one bad, so I pressed on. I started walking down the stairs into what appeared to be an unfinished basement. It was just so dark down there, like none of the lights were on. I wasn't really sure what to do. The stairs creaked as I walked on them, and I neared the base. When I got probably 2/3 of the way down the stairs, I heard a sudden noise in the basement. It was like somebody running, but I couldn't really see. I stopped where I was and looked around. Then, finally, I saw them. Some guy was sprinting towards me from the other side of the basement. He looked insane. I turned around and ran as fast as I could back up the stairs. When I had almost made it all the way back up, I heard the man running up the stairs behind me. I got back up to the main level of the house and then bolted out the front door. I ran all the way back to my bike and got out of there as quickly as possible. I didn't see anybody leaving the house, but I also didn't stick around very long to find out. I rode my bike with the wagon attached to it as fast as I could back home. The wagon slowed me down, but luckily I wasn't chased or anything. I got back home and told my parents everything. I thought that I was going to be in trouble, but they were surprisingly nice about it. I think they were just really glad I was okay. They went on to find the listing and reported it, and I think that
They were nice about it? You come back home, I'm beating the shit out of you. Hell no. They nice. Hell no. Do people still even get butt whoopings anymore? Jesus.
Reported it to the police as well. They told me not to worry about the situation anymore. Moving forward, if I wanted to find something on Craigslist, my parents told me to let them know, and they could possibly go with me. I did end up getting a TV not too long after that.
Was it off of Craigslist? Because still, even if you had somebody with you, that's still... Ugh.
I'm a 30-year-old female, and last summer, I listed my old laptop on Craigslist. I paid over $1,000 for the laptop when I bought it brand new, and I had recently gotten a new one. The laptop was about 3 years old, and it worked great. I figured I could still get a lot of money for it, and I did a little bit of research on what it was worth before listing it. This was my first time attempting to sell anything on Craigslist. I hadn't bought anything on Craigslist either, but one of my friends had several good experiences with it and recommended it to me. So I listed the laptop, and over the first few days, got no interest. I had one person asking if I would accept an offer that was far too low, but that was about it. Then, I finally seemed to get somebody that was seriously interested in it. I got a message from someone asking if the laptop was still available. I told them yes, and the person said they would like to come over and buy it.
Oh, no. You're not coming over here. We can meet up in a well-lit, well-public, right in front of a police station, and a hospital, and a firefighter place, firefighter house. All right. And down the street, it's the FBI headquarters, you know. Yeah. We can meet like that.
The person said his name was Tony, and he was willing to pay full price for the laptop. He said that his had recently broken, and he really needed one. We texted back and forth for a little, and ended up agreeing that Tony would come to my house to buy it the next evening. That very next morning, on what was supposed to be the day of the meeting, I saw that I had a friend request on Facebook. The request was from Tony himself. This puzzled me a bit because I hadn't given him my last name or anything like that. I went onto Tony's page to look at him, and to be honest, he really gave me the creeps. From the things he posted to how he looked, I suddenly had a bad feeling about him. I started to realize that I had invited this guy to my house, but luckily I had not given him my address yet. I decided that I no longer wanted him to come over, and I was going to tell him that I wasn't going to sell it anymore. I texted Tony, and I told him that I was sorry, but something had come up, and I would no longer be able to sell him the laptop. Tony responded pretty quickly, asking me why not. All I said was that something unexpected came up, and I was sorry, but it just wasn't going to work out.
Just because.
Tony then texted me that he was still going to come over. This made me worried. I told him that he did not need to come over anymore, and after I texted that, he didn't respond. I also declined his friend request on Facebook. I hoped that he would get the message and would not ask to come over again. A few hours went by, and day turned to night, and I was feeling better about the whole situation. I had not heard from Tony at all. But at about 8 p.m., I got a text message from him. It said, "I'm here." Suddenly, I had a terrible feeling. Was he actually here? How did he know my address? I crept over to the front window and looked outside. I saw a car parked outside, on the side of the street right in front of my house. The driver's door opened, and sure enough, Tony was there and walking out. I decided to pretend that I was not home. Most of my lights in the house were off because I had been in the other room. Tony walked up to the front step and then knocked on the door. I remained where I was and did not even think about answering it. He waited, and then knocked again. This went on for probably 5 minutes. I was just hoping that he would finally give up and leave. It was quiet for a while, and I was thinking about checking to see if Tony was gone, but then I felt my phone vibrate. I looked at it to see that Tony had texted me again. This time, he said, "I know that you're home. Let me in." I had no clue how he knew I was home, but I still didn't answer. Then, about a minute later, he tried calling me. After I didn't answer his phone call, he started pounding on the front door. Finally, I decided to text Tony back. I said, "Leave now or I will call the police."
Shut up.
Tony did not text me back. He kept knocking on the door on and off for a few more minutes. When this continued, I went...
As soon as you saw the person, like the car, that's when you should have just called the police. And the police should have just been like a house or two down, lights off, ready to go.
I then called 911. I told them basically the whole story, and I was told that a police officer would be there in 5 to 10 minutes. After the police were on their way, I got another text from Tony demanding me to let him in the house now. I didn't respond. Then I heard what sounded like Tony running from the front of the house around to maybe the back. I didn't hear anything for a while afterwards. A short time later, the police officer arrived. I answered the door for him and spoke to him for a few minutes. It looked like Tony was gone though. I showed the officer the text, and he ended up searching in my backyard as well as the front and sides of my house. Tony was gone, but the officer told me not to hesitate to call if Tony caused me any more problems. I couldn't believe that Craigslist could be such a dangerous place. Sure, I had heard stories about it, but I didn't think it would actually happen to me.
It happens when you least expect it. It happens when you least expect it. I could have told you that. You know? When you think, just because it never happened, it could have really all been avoided if you just wasn't on Craigslist. You know? Like, we've been in this neighborhood, me and baby girl, we've been in this neighborhood for almost a year. And I know that no matter where you go, Cluckness is always down the street, 2 houses away, not that far. Just saying. Because for you to say you never thought that would happen to you, that's some ludicrous ass shit for you to say.
In my city, I had always considered it to be really safe. Plus, I was new to Craigslist and had never actually used it before. I guess I learned the hard way to be very careful while using it. The crazy thing was that I had never given Tony my address. I was going to, but hadn't done it yet. So about an hour after the officer left, it was now about 10:30 at night. I was in my bedroom now, but not asleep yet. I was just watching TV and laying in bed. That's when I heard glass breaking coming from the back side of the house. I knew instantly that Tony was back. Then my phone started ringing. Tony was calling me. I did not bother to answer it. I rejected the call and then blocked Tony's number. I ran to my bedroom door and locked it. Then I called the police once again. Tony was walking around at the other end of the house, near where he had broken in. I heard him yell something, but I couldn't tell what it was. I told the 911 dispatcher that Tony was back and he had broken in. I was told that officers would be there as soon as possible. I didn't know how long I could wait though. I ran into my bedroom closet, which was small, but I could fit inside. I hid myself as best as I could. Tony made his way closer, over to my bedroom. Soon, he was right outside my bedroom door. He then yelled for me to let him in. He threatened to break the door down if I didn't. I yelled loudly that I had already called the police and they would be there any minute. Tony didn't reply, but pounded very loudly on my door several times. Then he walked away and seemingly charged back at my door to try to break it down. I heard the loud crashing of him running into my door, but luckily it did not break. If he got into my bedroom, it was probably only a matter of time before he would find me. He walked away again, but I didn't hear him for a while. I really wasn't sure where he went. Soon, there was a knocking at the front door of my house. It was the police, and at first I was afraid to leave my room, but eventually I was able to. I opened the door and I ran as fast as I could to the front door of my house and then let the officers in. This time, there were at least 5 police officers there. I let them in my house and I stayed outside with one of them. We were in my house for quite a while before finally coming out with Tony. He had been hiding inside in the attic. This gave me chills when I heard it. He had gotten away the first time the police showed up, but luckily not the second. After this experience, I haven't used Craigslist since.
Shouldn't have used it in the first place.
A few years ago, I was in the market for a new car. By new car, I mean newer than the one that I was currently driving at the time. My car was over 20 years old and would occasionally break down.
Damn.
I finally had some money saved up and was looking for something a little bit better. I started looking around on Craigslist. This is where I had gotten my first car, and I knew that they had a lot of good deals. I was also familiar with the website and had been looking there for almost a month. I found a car that looked pretty good. It was cheap, sort of high miles, but lower than my current car. It was definitely an upgrade. I decided that I was serious about it, and I contacted the owner to look at it. It turned out that the owner was a small dealer in the local town, and he said that I could come and see the car the next day. So I went there, and it was a place that I had never seen before. It was sort of run down looking, and even a bit sketchy. The building was small, and the parking lot had areas of cracked concrete with weeds growing out of it. The place had 8 total cars for sale, none of which looked very appealing. Still, the prices were cheap. The building was small, but had 2 stories, and it looked very old. I walked up and tried going inside, but the door was locked, so I knocked on it. A short time later, a man opened the door and introduced himself to me as Terry. He shook my hand and asked me what car it was again that I was interested in. Terry had a mustache and wore a red hat. I would describe him as fitting in with the place nicely. I reminded him of the car that I was interested in and pointed it out on the lot a few feet away. We both walked over to it, and then Terry said, "Let's go get the paperwork." I was a little bit confused because I hadn't agreed to buy it yet or anything. Maybe he wanted us to test drive it, or maybe he didn't know the general information on the car. So we both went inside the building. When I got inside, I saw a small hallway and then a few doors. Then there was a staircase going upstairs. Terry told me to go upstairs, and that's where it was located. I walked up the narrow staircase, and as I reached the top, Terry stood there and showed me which room to go in. There were only 2 doorways at the top of the stairs in a tiny hallway. I started to walk into the room. There was nothing in it though. No desk, no paperwork. The windows had bars over them, and it just looked really creepy. I didn't want to go in. I suddenly said, "Actually, I really have to go to the bathroom right now. Do you have one I could use quick?" Terry paused for a few seconds before he answered. He then told me that he did have one downstairs and told me to be quick. He said that he would show me where it was, and we both walked back down the stairs. When we got down, he showed me to a small room that was the bathroom. When I got inside, it was very small and dirty, but now I was away from Terry. I was still really creeped out though. Why did he want me to go in that room? As I was in the bathroom, I could tell that Terry was right outside the door, directly on the other side. This was also really suspicious. I just wanted to leave at this point. I no longer cared about buying that car. I went to leave the bathroom, and as soon as I started opening the door, it hit Terry, who was standing right outside of it. When it did, I quickly closed the door again. Then, I decided to just open the door really fast. The door opened onto Terry, and it pushed him back a little. It created a sort of wall between me and him. I ran out of the room and to the right. Then I ran straight for the door. I heard him yelling something at me, but I didn't stop to listen. Soon, I was out of the building and sprinting for my car. When I made it, I got inside and drove out of there. I got home, and when I looked, the Craigslist ad was deleted.
Oh.
I tried finding that car place on the map, but it was not showing up as a business. I really don't know what the deal with it was, but I never went back.
You know how all these Craigslist stories could be prevented? It's just by doing one simple thing. Not visiting Craigslist. Point blank, period. Keep cool, keep classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.